Western India Regional Council. On behalf of Western India Regional Council, myself, Shweta Jain, Secretary WRC, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all on the series of Women's on Wednesday, which is started with the intention to promote women members as a faculty. So under this, today we are coming up with Women Board of Directors, and I recognize the presence of our WRC Chairman, C. Murtaza Kachwala, our panelist and moderator, CA Rupa Vora, Neha Huddar, CA Sangeeta Pandit, our regional council member, CA Pinky Kedia, and coordinator, Seema Mehta. And before formally start the session, I request everyone to put your hand on your heart for the ICI motto.
येष सुप्तेषु जागृति येष सुप्तेषु जागृति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यति कश्चन एतद्द्वैता
Thank you. Friends, we all know that having an effective board of director is crucial to an organization. Even if the average person might not be able to name an organization's board member, but still they have a strong impact on how an organization runs, make decisions, and ultimately on its success. So therefore, bringing in a variety of perspective, backgrounds, and experience can be key to an organization's success. So here, one way can be to bring in this diverse perspective is through gender diversity on the board. So since still women only make up a small percentage of board of director, so how we can increase this percentage and what exactly role women chartered accountant can play as an independent director, that is the topic for the discussion for today. But before giving charge to our moderator, now I would request to our chairman WRC to address to our participants. Over to you, Chairman, sir.
Thank you, Shweta. A very warm good afternoon to all the participants, and a big thank you to everyone for joining today. Let me first congratulate Chairman of Women's Empowerment Committee and Vice Chairman Shweta Jain and Pinky Kedia for the excellent work which is being done. And this series, the Women on Wednesday, has been continuous like now for almost 1.5 years. It started in the last in the term, and it was started by Preeti and Rushti. Now it is continuing, and every Wednesday, and it gives an opportunity for women to come across and be speaker, panelist, moderator. Let me also thank coordinator for today, Seema Mehta madam, and of course Kapoor madam, who is like always standing there like a rock solid behind us on all these programs. But let me also thank CA Dr. Sangeeta Patil madam. Madam, thank you Sangeeta Pandit madam for all the support that you give to us throughout the year and on so many programs, be it research, be it students program, career counseling, and also on those type of programs. So thank you. And let me also welcome both the guests today, CA Rupa Vora and CA Neha Huddar madam, both board members, for joining us and deciding to spare your valuable time with the participants today. So on the board, I think the governance structure in the country has been changing continuously. And if you look at the statistics, there are so many board members who are resigning. And if you look at the reasons of resignation, so like at times people say personal commitments. And maybe if you go and start looking into the depth of it, the responsibility is increasing, and there is so much of risk also now. And we in fact did a survey with like a lot of independent board members and the board members, and so like the questions which came up is like can they be put behind bar for something which they do not even know, they're not full time, okay, they spend only some time attending the board meeting or maybe provide an oversight. And then like are there any insurance covers X Y Z, and there are so many things which are like at the top of the mind. But I'm sure today during the discussion, both the board members will also be able to add a few more things in terms of like what are the various opportunities for chartered accountants. And maybe as a board, one thing that they want from the company or the CEO, CFO is a compliance report quarter on quarter. Now, the CEO, CFO maybe are busy, so they can always come to chartered accountants like us, even a small firm, and the CA firm can go and see what are the acts or compliances which are applicable, the regulations, whether who is responsible in the organization to do it, whether it is being done or not, and give a compliance report which can be placed before the board. So this is one which comes to my mind, and like this can be a regular revenue for chartered accountant firms. Similarly, related party, again, each and every board wants some assurance on the related party transaction. And here as a firm, we could possibly go and find out who are the related parties, what is the relation, what is the nature of transaction, whether it is arm's length or not, etc., and then give a report. And again, that report is required every quarter. So I think there are so many opportunities where the board wants so much information in line with the compliances of the various statutes and regulations from the company, and the company may not have the bandwidth always to do it themselves. So I'm sure they're going to touch upon those as well today. So the last thing which I would want to touch is the lead. That is a theme this year at WIRC, lead towards excellence, achievement and development. And we have defined or listed 5 goals. Against each of the goals, we listed activities that we want to do during the course of the year. And we also listed all the transactions, that how many programs, what nature, what type of things, and how do we deliver this, the 5 goals. And the 2 important things which we wanted to touch upon is, one is like on technical subjects, be it accounting standard, company law, direct tax, indirect tax, what programs do we do, what literature or publication we come up with so as to ensure that the technical knowledge of our members and students increases or goes up. That is one. But the second is, how do we create more and more opportunities by bringing to light newer areas of opportunities or practices for the members in practice as well as in industry. And of course, one other thing is we do tremendous amount of programs now on technology, be it Excel, be it macro, be it Tally Prime, be it a fusion of Tableau versus so-and-so, a presentation tool, a robotic process automation, and we are doing it, so many of them. We would request you to please keep on joining us on various of these programs and ensuring that we update our knowledge technically as well as technologically so that we can adopt and we can be more efficient and effective in our work. So I think with that, thank you very much for the opportunity, and over to you, Shweta. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chairman Sir, for briefing us about everything. So now I would request to Regional Council Member and Vice Chairman of Women Empowerment Committee, CA Pinky Kedia, please introduce to our moderator.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Sir, for your kind word and your word of wisdom. And thank you, Sweta, to give me this opportunity to introduce today's learned speakers and moderator. So first I will start from Neha Madam. So CA Neha Huddar is the chartered accountant with more than 35 years of experience. She started working as an accounts officer with Tirumalai Chemical Limited. And she went on to become a group CFO, heading 2 public limited company, private limited company, partnership and trust. She was with the group of 29 years handling account, finance, income tax, audit, and also HR and marketing. The turnover of the group grew from 15 crore to 750 crores during this period. She then became vice president at Reliance Industry, heading payroll, employee insurance, and benefit more than 1.5 lakh employees. She retired in 2019. Even during her tenure at Reliance, her goal was to become independent director and utilize her vast experience for the benefit of the company. With due approval in place, she joined the board of Bodal Chemical Limited as a woman director. She is now serving her second term. In 2020, she joined the board of Mitsutame Plast Limited as an independent director. The company moved from listing on MSME board to the main board during lockdown. Neha is on the advisory board of SS Life Assistance Foundation, an NGO which provides accommodation to children having cancer. She is also a consultant at Target Publications Limited, where her son, who is also a CA, is one of the executive director. During the last 1 year, she has learned to recite the Bhagavad Gita and also memorize the Venkasa Suprabhatam. Welcome, ma'am, to today's seminar. Now, CA Rupa Vora, madam. She is a former CFO in IDFC Alternatives. Mrs. Rupa Vora was the group director and CFO IDFC Alternative for more than a decade, and earlier CFO of the Indian operation of Antwerp Diamond Bank NV and KBC Bank. She was also associated with Kalyan Bank and Oman International Bank. Before joining the corporate world, she ran an independent practice as a chartered accountant for almost a decade. She has been a member of the jury for the CFO 100 award by the CFO Institute and has been conferred with the Women Leadership Excellence Award at the IPE BFSI Award 2013 by the Institute of Public Enterprise. CA Rupa Vora has featured among India's 10 most influential women in finance by Rediff.com in 2012. Wow, great. An independent director on corporate board, she is a fellow member of the Institute of Director and a lifetime member of the Independent Directors Data Bank of the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. Mrs. Vora is a member of CII National Committee on Financial Reporting 2020-21 and 21-22 and is also involved with the art of living. Welcome, madam, to today's seminar. And now our moderator, Dr. C. Sangeeta Pandit. Dr. C. Sangeeta Pandit is a HOD Finance at Sydenham Institute of Management. She is a professor, corporate and faculty trainer. She conducts regular sessions in hospitals with patients and their caregiver to cope with the emotional and financial trauma of life-threatening ailment. She works closely with various organizations for the cause of financial inclusion. She has been in the educational sector for 26 years. She is an independent director in listed companies. She is a much sought after corporate trainer. So with this brief introduction of all the panelists and moderator, I welcome all. So please take the session. That's yours.
I'll unmute myself. Throughout this pandemic for 2 years, I've been listening to this. Please unmute, please unmute. Okay, so we have now about 2 hours. So I hope all the participants at the end of that of 2 hours are happy that they have joined this webinar. And please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions or put it on chat or whatever, because I want it to be as participative as possible. Actually, listening to the introduction of Neha ma'am and Rupa ma'am, I just realized there's so much of similarities that they all broke the glass ceiling, entered the C-suite, became CFOs in organizations, and totally on merit. It was not that they were the children of any promoters or anything. So hard work, resilience pays, and it takes time. Rome is not built in one day. It took them years to reach there. And they're all in both independent directors in organizations and trying to contribute to society also. And now they have also turned a little bit spiritual, I think, going to meditation and yoga and, trying to de-stress themselves, understanding that, yes, life is far more than just positions and money and everything. So with this background of both the panelists, I hope we will have a good session. So actually, if you go to see Schedule 4 of the Companies Act, lays down the code of conduct for independent directors. And it is actually a very generic code, I would feel. You know, if you apply this code even in your day-to-day living, even as a businessman or in any profile, it's bound to be useful. It's a beautiful code. So Rupa, what I was thinking, that one of the clauses in the code says that independent director shall uphold ethical standards of integrity and probity. And probity, if you see the dictionary meaning, refers to the quality of having moral principles. Now, moral principles is such an abstract parameter, like something which is morally right for one person may not be morally right for another person. So according to you, what is actually you mean by moral principles? And can you, have you ever seen any conflict between co-directors regarding moral principles?
Thank you, Sangeeta. I think that's a great question to start with. Ethical standards of integrity and probity, well, we have no formal education on these, except probably the moral science that we did in school, right? We are lucky that as chartered accountants, we do have the privilege of being trained with the right code of conduct, and we need to adhere to it. So it's not new for us. Today, most companies provide case studies on behavioral aspects that define right behavior and what should be avoided. And this code, and they have a code of conduct that needs to be adhered to. Integrity and probity are really human behavioral aspects, and there is a lot to do with the culture and the way you have been brought up. And as you rightly said, everyone doesn't have the same moral standards. As a board, you influence behavior and the culture of the organization.
Rupa, we've lost you. Audio is lost.
Is
Rupa?
it?
No,
Okay.
I'm
No,
able to hear.
it's audible, it's audible.
Yeah, I'm
It's
able to
audible.
hear.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm also able to hear.
So I was just mentioning that as a board, you need to influence behavior and the culture of the organization. And the decisions that you take really reflect the values of the company, right? The nomination and remuneration committee also looks at culture closely, and the HR conducts employee satisfaction surveys, culture surveys, etc. Today, KRAs also include points for exhibiting the right culture and complying with the code of conduct and values of the organization. There are training programs that inculcate the right behavior. The controls framework, the ICFR audit, and the internal audit also help to drive the right culture. As work from home and hybrid work modules evolve, and as technology becomes a thrust area, it is important to ensure that there are no cyber frauds or incidents against the company. ITIS policies need to influence the culture of probity and use of IT for business purposes. The culture and values of the organization has to be a part of the DNA of the organization, and integrity and probity are most essential. As independent directors, we are conscience keepers of the organization, and we set the tone at the top and influence the culture of the organization and values of the organization, where normally integrity, responsibility, excellence, stewardship, etc. are defined, and a set code of conduct is developed, which defines ethical behavior. There are vigil mechanisms like the whistleblower policy that people can use to report unethical behavior. We need to ensure that the whistleblower mechanism is operating effectively. People must be encouraged to speak up. Transparency and a culture of openness should be encouraged. The fraud control framework also shows us whether the culture is followed or no. As board members, we are being observed all the time, not just in your dealings with the company, but also in your personal dealings. You always need to be above board. You cannot use unpublished price-sensitive information for your individual benefit. You need to ensure that there is no conflict of interest. And in case there is a conflict, you need to disclose it immediately. And if it affects your independence, you need to resign. To reiterate, do the right thing even when no one is looking. I think that's the most important. Ethical dilemmas are very common, but culture to take the right way and not the easy way helps to solve ethical dilemmas easily. Where there is zero tolerance for partial lapses of integrity, it speaks volumes. For example, just medical claims. There is a fixed amount that you can claim in a year. You don't have the medical bill, so you make changes in the chemist bill to increase the bill amount. If you want to set the right tone in the organization, you must take action against the employee who has changed the chemist bill, as that will serve as a restatement of our values, that even partial lapses of integrity are not allowed. A gift policy that defines the limits of gifts that can be accepted or the kind of gifts that can be accepted also influences behavior. The culture needs to be clear so that there is no dilemma in trying situations. For example, in case of a ransomware attack, what does the incident response team do? Will they think of paying the ransom? No. The culture is clear. Instead, they will act, see what data is compromised, get ethical hackers to check the security loopholes, get them fixed, and also report the case to the insurance company if they have a cyber insurance. The anti-bribery and corruption laws and the anti-money laundering laws and policies make it very clear that corruption and bribery are not permitted. So when there is an inspection, favors and gifts are never offered to get a favorable outcome. The culture is very clear. Being independent directors, we need to influence the culture of the organization and set the tone right. It is important for us to exhibit ethical conduct in our dealings too, both personal and professional. I don't think this should lead to conflicts of interest between directors. All of us should be aligned with the same values. I would think twice about board directorships if there were conflicts of interest with regard to integrity and probity.
Excellent answer, Rupa. I think you covered all the possible issues, and I like the way that you linked that how a company's policies, systems, processes, technology should all be integrated in such a way that ultimately it leads to a culture which promotes good corporate practices, ethics, and all. And yes, it's another very good point you brought out, that all the co-directors also should agree to a good culture of good corporate practices. And if at all there is some friction about that, I think probity, ethics should take precedence, and we should see that there is alignment, or then you exit or make them exit rather.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Neha, another clause in this code of conduct says that independent directors must devote sufficient time and attention to their professional obligations for informed and balanced decision making. But let me tell you, very often it so happens they send us papers, though it may be within the time frame that they are required to send, such voluminous data that all our time goes in just reading through those that information, and we don't get time to think about it, to see, to refer to the act and other provisions relating to that. So how do you go thoroughly prepared? Even financial statements sometimes for confidentiality's sake are sent at the last minute. So how do you go well prepared and then take informed decisions before passing resolutions?
Thank you for inviting me, first of all. And see, you are not forced to become a director on your own. So you have to put the effort as is required. So you know, generally, once you attend 2-3 meetings, you know approximately when they hold their meetings, whether it is the first 30 days or within the last 15 days. So you have to make yourself available. You cannot announce that I'm going on a holiday and I'm not available. And generally, the company secretary also checks up with you regarding your availability. And 4 to 5 days, generally, all the other papers are received except for the results. So you have to go through it meticulously, including the internal audit report and all related party transactions, whatever is there in the agenda. And if there is anything new, you're supposed to read up on the net and gather as much information as possible so that you're prepared one, and you're able to ask the right questions. And regarding the financial statements, being chartered accountants, you know, we are quite well versed with financial reports. So we know exactly what to look for and where. And I think that brings it a lot of, we are much better than any other field people to go through the accounts and ask the relevant questions. and be prepared. I don't think there should be a hesitation in saying that attend a meeting if you're absolutely well prepared, and you should be, because you never know, what will come up at the meeting, and it should not happen that you don't know what is in the agenda.
Okay, so yes, so according to you, Neha, that hard work is essential, otherwise you don't accept it. Once you accept it,
Yes.
you're committed, and you have to put in those many hours of reading,
Yes.
burning the midnight oil, and have to go
Yes.
prepared for the board meeting.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yes.
the code also mentions, Neha, that the independent director must safeguard the interest of all stakeholders, particularly the minority shareholders. Now, if you see the capital structure of any company, not only in India but abroad too, a large chunk of the shares are held by the promoters and their family. So, do you think that there is any difference between the interests of these shareholders and interests of the minority shareholders?
See, for most of the items, the interest of the promoter group and the minority shareholders is the same. See, no company or no management wants, to get into any legal hassles or be non-compliant or pay penalty or, do something which is not ethical. So most of it, but in case of, where there are subsidiary companies, there can be a difference in the interest of a promoter group and minority shareholders. And that is where it is important for an independent director to be very vigilant and be prepared, to get the proper explanation as to why they're going in for a particular transaction, and how to, at that time, protecting the interest of minority shareholders is absolutely important.
Okay, so according to you, that most of the interests of minority shareholders and majority shareholders could be the same, but there could be sometimes when there are subsidiaries involved, or wherever some transactions may be involved, and the independent director has to be resilient about it, because the resolutions passed should benefit all the stakeholders. Basically, that is the main job of an independent director, is to safeguard the interests of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders are everybody. You have the employees, the customers, the suppliers, the society in general, but particularly they have to safeguard the interests of the minority shareholders. Okay, so Rupa, another aspect which the code of conduct goes to is that the independent director must undertake appropriate induction and regularly be familiar with the familiarity. It should be there with the company. So how was your induction done as an independent director into companies, and what exactly do you understand by familiarity with the company?
Yeah. Maybe I'll take your second question first and talk about the familiarity with the company. And I think that's an absolute necessity before getting on to any board, that you familiarize yourself with the company and do your diligence on the company, its promoters, its business, its management, the composition of the board, the values, the code of conduct, the previous audited financials, check them to see if there are any qualifications or concerns. Meet the conscience keepers of the organization, like the CEO, CFO, CRO, Chief Audit Executive, Chief Human Resource Officer, etc. Join boards that meet with your values. For example, if you're dead against cigarette smoking, then don't join a cigarette company board, right? It doesn't make any sense at all. Check the sustainability initiatives, the CSR policies, check the news on the company and the fraud risk management framework. Check the MCA website, check sites like Zauba Corp, etc. Download the documents, check the resignation letters of directors in the past and the key management personnel. Check if there are any private equity investors and whether the company has been fair to its partners. Check if there are any legal issues pending. Make yourself, familiarize yourself with the company, and getting on to the right boards is very important. Insist on an induction program when you join the board. Ask for the material of the last 3 meetings and the minutes so you are familiarized with the issues. Meet employees one level below the management team. Try to see if everyone is aligned with the same corporate objectives and values. Don't stop being a learner. abreast of the changes in the laws of the land, be a part of the ID networks, attend programs on corporate governance. The Institute of Directors, CII, and the Big Fours have good forums for IDs. Check the boardroom questions. It is important for you to ask the right questions. And you need to ask the right questions. You must know the topic clearly yourself. It is important to understand the regulations and the business strategies as well. You need to be able to challenge assumptions and ensure the strategy is sustainable and equitable. The self-assessment test of the IICA, look at those two. Some of the case studies, etc., are very useful. Don't be afraid of giving the tests. Take them even if you are exempted from the test. I've done some too and find them useful. It feels very good when you test your own knowledge. That inquisitive mind, let it seek. Don't be a roadblock in meetings. Yes, it is your duty to ask questions and satisfy yourself, but don't keep doubting intentions. Try to look at other people's perspectives and don't talk just because you like to talk. Talk because there is something relevant that you need to point out. Don't just be a problem identifier, be a solution finder. Build trust with the board members that your interests are aligned, and what you say is not just because you have to, but because it is in the best interests of the company. For example, coming back to the related party transactions, if you have to approve related party transactions, the transaction is placed before you. The management confirms that it is benchmarked and it is at arm's length. It is your duty to ensure that the benchmarking is properly documented and that the transaction is in the best interest of the company and is in the ordinary course of business. It is a transaction that has the omnibus approval of the board, and going forward, if it is a material related party transaction, you get the shareholder approvals, etc. Ensure that there is a policy for related party transactions and that the transaction proposed is within the tenets of the related party transaction policy. Ensure that you have internal auditors and statutory auditors look at related party transactions. Much like Mr. Kachwala said in his address, this is an opportunity for chartered accountants as well. And confirm that these transactions are at arm's length in the ordinary course of business and have the necessary documents and are documented properly. This will safeguard your own interests as an independent director and also the interests of the company. Sangeeta, I couldn't agree more with you on this. You need to constantly upgrade your skills and be a learner. In this changing VUCA world, full with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, if you want to succeed, learning never stops. And you learn from mistakes too, but ensure you don't make the same mistake again. And the best is to learn from other people's mistakes rather than make the mistake yourself. Coming to the next part of your question, how was your induction in companies? I really didn't have there was no formal induction policy when I was inducted. We have it now in place, at least in the debt-listed company boards. Directors are given formal induction into the affairs of the company and are introduced to the management teams. New directors are given a sense of the business strategy and the 3-year plan of the policies and the control framework in place. They meet with auditors and get to attend relevant training or industry programs and even can get external expert advice in certain situations. Training on regulations and a regular updates on regulatory reforms, the industry and the competitive landscape are a part of the induction program.
Yes, Rupa. I like the way you said, insist on induction. I think what is happening is that induction has now become a checklist in some companies. The moment you join the board, they will send you a PPT, a generic PPT, which is there about the organization, which is the same for you, or is it for the same for the vendors, or during before any deal or anything? You need specific induction to understand the nuances to carry on your roles and responsibilities of an independent director. And I think the onus is on the independent director to see that proper induction is done. Very often companies maybe don't feel don't want to spend that much time or so, because somehow, in spite of so much of regulations, provisions, the role of independent directors has to completely evolve, and it is up to the independent directors to see that the role gets evolved. So I really like the sentence when you said insist on induction. And yes, about conversations, how to talk and the decorum which you have to maintain. I just concluded a meeting in the morning, and actually I would say one person had verbal diarrhea and was held the entire meeting at ransom, talking. I mean, you are not attending board meetings to speak about your skill sets. You are there in the board meeting as a support to the organization to see that good corporate practices are being implemented, to safeguard that, and ultimately to safeguard the interests of all the stakeholders. So sometimes people just go off track, and I think one of our as a women independent director, we are better at that, to steer it back to course where it should be. And yes, familiarity with policies too. Again, I think the ball is in our court, because sometimes the company secretary or the others don't realize the importance that independent directors, to ask the right questions, should be familiar with the organization. So we need to read their CSR policy, their whistleblowers policy, their prevention of this POSH rules and regulations, what they have on their websites. Whatever is the risk management policy, whatever are their ways of evaluating the top management people. So there are so many policies which are there in the organization. So we need to be familiar with that, and we have to, so that we can suggest changes if there are changes in the macroeconomic factors. Coming to taking forward your reference to RPTs, Neha, I would like to say that practically what happens, the independent directors do not want, it is too onerous and responsibility when it comes to passing resolutions about RPTs. So they preferred, to insist, get a certificate from, give a certificate from the management or from an external party that they are all transactions at arm's length. And sometimes proper discussion is not there done on RPTs. And management also does not want too much discussion on RPTs. So what are your thoughts on this?
So over the years, I feel the term related party has changed so many times. I think that is one part of Companies Act which has changed maximum number of times. I remember when way back, 20 years back maybe, the brother's son was not a relative. So the company used to find out loopholes, to see that how, remuneration can be paid to him and all such things. So that way, over the years, laws have become much, much stricter and wider. And the term related party covers almost the entire promoter group and the subsidiaries and the companies where they have more than 20% of interest. So as far as the listing of related parties, who are all the related parties, the company secretary does a proper job on listing out who are the related parties. But as you rightly said, every quarter we get this list, and sometimes you feel, that ye to last quarter we had already discussed. So it doesn't come up again. See, it is for you to go to ensure that, you have seen the previous quarter's list and seen this quarter's list. First of all, find out whether there is any new party. And if there is any material change in the value of the amount which we have spent with the related party, which we have given to the related party, then you should raise a discussion on that. There has to be proper explanation given by the chairman on why it is necessary and what are they doing, with that company or with the subsidiary to, and so that, later on you don't feel, that arey wo paisa sab doob gaya. It shouldn't happen like that. So for that, you have to take proper decisions and you have to raise a discussion. It has to be properly discussed, and then the minutes after the board meeting is very important. It has to be properly documented and minuted, and whatever explanation the chairman has given should be on record, so that we are able to say that, this was the reason which they're given. They are able to show us that, see, we are already given this explanation, and this is the same explanation why we are continuing with this transaction. and any new related party, and even the other directors who are on the board, if they have any interest, stake, or any relation with the transactions of the company, they should also openly come out with it, and not refrain from mentioning that, which would cause a problem for the company and for the independent director lead.
Yes, Neha, very true, very true. That, and what Rupa was also saying, we have to do our homework also, going to various websites, reading about the business model, reading about the people who are involved with the company. So we also get an idea is if there is conflict of interest, and we are alert, we are put on alert about these things, because there are people, it's very sad, who do not disclose sometimes things, and maybe we know where we have to deep dive into certain issues. You just made a reference earlier also about subsidiary companies, how we have to be careful when there are transactions between the parent and subsidiary, because some of the shareholders of the parent may not be of the subsidiaries, but the promoters may be there.
Yes.
So yes, it is an onerous responsibility, RPTs, and one has to be very careful about it. And I don't think just getting a certificate maybe puts our mind a little bit at ease, but we need to ask the right questions there and see ultimately that this, all the stakeholders' interests are safeguarded. Okay, Rupa, there is also a requirement that independent directors should meet at least once in a financial year or so and have their own meeting. But my experience is that this independent directors meet, and that meeting is arranged by the company secretary. And the company secretary is present there, and he or she is sort of representing the management. So whatever is discussed there, there is no confidentiality as such. So do you think confidentiality is required, or how do you go about this structure of independent directors meeting? And what is the purpose of this independent directors meeting where executive directors are not present?
Yeah, I think meetings of independent directors are very necessary, but most companies miss out the word "at least" and arrange for just one meeting of independent directors in a year, where the independent directors meet generally after the results of the annual evaluation are there of the board and the directors is complete. That's when we have the independent directors meeting to discuss the performance of the non-independent directors, the performance of the chairman of the board, the timeliness and the content of the flow of information, and make suggestions to the company on what we could do in terms of improving the information flow between two meetings, not at meetings, the succession plans, regulatory updates, any big news that comes, should be known to the independent directors before it comes on the headlines of the newspaper. And the ESG initiatives, the BRSR reporting initiatives, everything that the company needs to focus on is kind of discussed with independent directors or by the independent directors. And I feel that the independent directors should meet more often, and the minutes should be maintained. So my take is that if a company secretary is organizing these meetings and is present at these meetings, should not be a concern, because we are all getting together with the aim of improving what the company is actually doing. And the company secretary should know about our concerns, right? And if these discussions are kept confidential, probably they are going to be useless, because we'll just be discussing amongst ourselves and nothing will come out of that. So I'm okay with that confidentiality not being maintained, as long as the information, as long as people have the guts, I would say guts, to talk out in front of the company secretary about the concerns they feel about the way the meetings are conducted, about the performance of the chairman and other directors, etc. And people talk about these things without any fear, and the suggestions that are made are implemented. I think that's in the best interest of the company. So I feel confidentiality should not be an issue here.
Oh, okay, Rupa, thanks for your thoughts that there should be no confidentiality. Even I agree that there has to be total transparency in whatever you discuss, whether it is in the board meetings or whether it is in the meetings of only independent directors. And yes, for the suggestions to be implemented, yes, it should be known to all. And But then what is happening, and you rightly said, at least one meeting it is, and that is why people, just to see that they are complying, they have in a hurry burry one meeting. But that one has to bring some seriousness to that, and it is up to, I think, again, the women directors to see that these meetings are held not only for the compliance sake, but seriously to look into certain issues which are not looked into when the executive directors are also present. It is just that the executive directors are so much involved in day-to-day activities that they sort of don't see things which as outsiders we may be able to see, and then we have time to discuss that. It's not that one is against the other or anything. We are both together for the good of the company. And then, you have this list and everybody says tick, 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 and everybody gives best ratings to everybody. I mean, one has to look at every parameter and see. You cannot, there is a, say, in our one board, there was one person who is from HR background. And the question was, is he familiar with all accounting standards? Everybody put yes. I mean, you have to put some thought and give your proper evaluation so that the proper independent director is in the right committee and then can contribute in a better way. So somehow the onus is again on us to see that these meetings of independent directors only are taken very seriously. And, like this old boys club they form, and they just, you rub my back, I rub my back, and I scratch my back, you scratch my back, or whatever. And then everybody's happy with everybody's performance. No, I think we have to, motivate each other to perform better and better, so that the company as a ultimately benefits, because we are not there as independent directors for the glamour of it, for the money of it, but basically to see that there is corporate governance and the stakeholders do not lose out.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so I really like the point that you brought out, that the act says at least one meeting, but it can be more meetings, which I don't think any organization has. Most organizations have only one meeting. And I like the way you say you should have the guts. Yes, you have to speak out. I mean, we are not there as a popularity contest over there to be independent directors. We are there to do our role. It's our responsibility, our duty, which we have to do, even if it leads to being a little unpopular amongst the other co-directors.
Yeah.
Okay, so Neha, coming to now sitting fees. These sitting fees which are paid to directors, the amounts, you can go on any website and check, they range from company to company. And also for some independent directors, it could be the major source of income. So what are your thoughts on sitting fees? And also the second question is that, could it dilute the independence of independent directors?
See, in India, in this corporate world, the auditors and the independent directors are appointed by the company, and the fees are paid by them. So that itself, does make it difficult for the independent director and for the company also to, they have to get people, they have to get good people, but they would want to get people at the minimum cost. Now there is an upper limit for payment of sitting fees, which is lakh of rupees per meeting, and plus you can get commission on profits. But out of the companies listed, I'm sure there are very few companies which are really large and which have international exposure and which are really big. But there are many small companies in the range of say 200 crores to even 2000 crores, which are, they hesitate to pay to the independent director. They feel that char meeting hai, every quarter they come and go. So, so there should be some minimum limit which should be fixed for the company, and it should be for the visiting fees, and it should be based on either the turnover of the company or the profit of the company. Some sort of level should be there. And I don't believe that the independence will get affected if you're getting less fees or more fees. Even if you're getting less fees, as a woman or any independent director will do their best, and they will contribute as much as possible for the good of the company. And even if they're getting very high fees, it will be the same. So once you have decided that you've taken up that independent director position, I don't think that it does matter, whether what is the sitting fees. That is the last question. But still, I feel that since you also mentioned that for many independent directors, this is their source of income. Like I recently heard HDFC Chairman Deepak Parekh saying that he did not want to, borrow money and nothing. So he became independent director in companies. He became directors in other companies so that he could, fund his children's education and everything. So he did not want to take any loans, and nor did he want to, So it is like that. So it has to be, you have to pay well, and so that you get the best out of the independent director.
Okay, so I hope Seema Madam and Pinky Madam, you can take it forward and lobby and see that sitting fees, as Neha has mentioned, is linked to some parameter. And it is not dependent at the discretion of the management, to some parameter like turnover or size of the revenues or sales or size of the company or some parameter it should be linked to, then there is some sanity in the whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Neha, again coming to you, we have in any organization, I'm sure there are certain things which are going wrong. Like in the purchase department, you get kickbacks, and so you buy from certain vendors only, or then there is a fudging of accounts to get more bonus, and there are these frauds or errors happening. And there are ethical people also who cannot tolerate it, who don't want it to happen. So one person was telling me, see, that when such a thing happens, either you should have the determination to take it to the logical end. It's very tough when you bring out something, some fraud or something happening in an organization, because then there is a coterie of people, collusion of many people who are behind it. So to face all of that, or then you just leave the organization. But still, and that is why you had the Whistleblowers Act and all into the place, and you have it on the website. But when you're in a board meeting, and if it is brought to your notice that somebody has complained under the Whistleblowers Act, so how would you take this issue forward?
See, first of all, that complaint, we have to find out whether it is really genuine or it is just frivolous. Because, there can be, vested interest in raising complaints also, because somebody got a promotion and I did not get. So that is why I want to complain against him. So the first point is you have to ensure that the complaint is really serious. And then that whistleblower should be protected. He should be probably, in a board meeting, he should be called, and, in an audit committee meeting, he should be called, and you should ask him exactly what he wants to, complain about, and who has already attended to his complaint, and is he satisfied? Sorry, is he satisfied with the way the complaint has been handled? If he says that no, kuch nahi hua, it just went off like that, then the audit committee should, discuss on that and see how best, you can go further on that complaint and bring it to a logical conclusion. The detailed tracking of that complaint is very essential, and it should be properly documented. And the person who he is complaining against, be it at whatever position, stern action should be taken. I know in companies, large companies like Reliance, they used to just, dismiss the employee immediately. So that should be the stand taken. And fortunately, in both the companies in which I am on the board, there have been no whistleblowers as of now. So this, I have not faced it actually, but this is the way it should be handled, is what I.
Yes, so there are people who take recourse to the act. And also I have seen it helps, when before the board meeting or after the board meeting, the directors chat with the CFOs and CEOs, and the promoter has left. And then you sort of build a rapport with them, and then they start talking, and then you start understanding how things happen, and how sometimes they are forced to do things while taking Like I understood in my chatting that for taking the working capital loan, how they were forced to fudge their inventory a bit and all. So then I went deeper into it. And then, the next board meeting, with the help of the other directors, we convinced them that you cannot do it because the rules of the bank are such that they are checking your competency. So you're taking a loan which you're not capable of returning, and then you are into deeper problems. So very often, just by talking, I think without all people may not take recourse to Whistleblowers Act, but just chatting with the CEOs, CFOs, we realize how they are pressurized sometimes to do things, though they don't agree to it. So, I mean, at that age of 55, 56, they want to retain their jobs also. So then I think the responsibility shifts to the board to see that things are going in the right way. But I think it is an amazing act, the Whistleblowers Act, and it is up to the board to see that it is there on the website, and people and a lot of transparency is encouraged, and people are empowered to complain if they see something wrong. Going forward, Rupa, to the other act, the POSH, which is popularly called the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, from the Vishaka guidelines and all, we have come a long way from there. It is I have come across sadly in the board that, they insist on the complaint being in writing. And sometimes people are hesitant to put things in writing because the rules say that it should be in writing. Anonymously people write, maybe because they are scared of backlash, and also these anonymous complaints are not taken seriously. Then you have an internal committee which calls the person who has complained, and there are all men in that committee, and those men are obviously friends with the person against whom that lady is complaining, and ultimately you see the lady leaves the organization. And it's difficult then to get a job again, because then she carries that taboo that she has complained. So how do you deal, and how do you think these sensitive things should be handled?
Yeah, I think you're right that, sometimes there's a dilemma between an ambiguous and anonymous complaint and a complaint that has a name and, is identified. But to take things forward, sometimes I feel that the person who's complaining should be identified. One, so that we can understand what really happened, we can ask the right questions, etc. Now, the POSH Act also requires the ICC, that is the Internal Complaints Committee, to have women members, which are more, and the presiding officer of the committee also needs to be a woman. If there is no woman executive in the senior position, then only a man can take part in that. So all those things are now put up in the act, and the sexual harassment policies also have that. When I would like if such a complaint comes to the board, I would like to see that it is as a natural response, whether it is a genuine complaint or no. How the Internal Complaints Committee has addressed this. What was the role of the external member on in the ICC, right? There is an external member who is knowledgeable about the legal provisions and who is probably an NGO worker, etc., who is dealing with women empowerment. So, how is that person what is the role of that external member? Was the judgment fair? It needs to be fair. Is the complainant satisfied with the redressal? That's important too. And how was the offender penalized? What was the action taken to ensure that the offender does not repeat this harassment? And though the case and the proceedings are confidential and are to be retained as such, what is the message that we are sending out to the organization? So we should take this as an opportunity to send out the right message. And today, allegations of sexual harassment are clearly increasing, and the impacts of these allegations are swift, right? And organizations and brands and long-established reputation can just be utterly smashed overnight. So the internal culture, the external communities, and the bottom line can also suffer irreparably. The board of directors can no longer reasonably rely on outdated policies and procedures, and they need to quickly move and appropriately respond to the accusers, the staff, and the public. Moving decisively, I think, is the key to giving these accusations the serious consideration that they deserve, and while protecting those involved, the organization and the management and the board itself. Steps should be taken to ensure that employees at all levels in the company feel comfortable coming forward with a complaint of harassment, regardless of the position of the offender, before it gets to a point of long-term situation that makes the front pages of the newspapers. Take this opportunity to underscore the importance of an organization's commitment to a workplace free of discrimination and harassment by recirculating the harassment policy, stressing its importance to the organization, and conducting harassment training to educate the workforce. I think trust on diversity and inclusion also helps, right? When we are actually creating a diverse organization, and here I don't mean just gender diversity, diversity of thought, diversity of religion, everything. I mean, there cannot be any harassment on any of these terms, not just limited to sexual harassment. So I think the overall practices need to promote diversity, better outreach, to make sure that at least there is one woman and one minority or unrepresented candidate for each open position, direct management opportunities to pursue, to invest in human capital of the company's employees, and through mentorship programs, seminars, and trainings also, and review the efforts by the management and HR to set these goals and the performance metrics of diversity initiatives. I think that can also help reduce harassment, because people get more familiar with each other and respect each other. I think that's really important. One of the things I also think of is education on respecting each other's religion. Probably that's something that we should be taught in school, that we are all same and this is one humanity that we're talking about, and how to uphold those human values rather than just respecting one religion or thinking that the other religion is not good. And so if you have an exposure to the different religions while you are in school, then you learn to respect them, and automatically that harassment or that not thinking good about other people stops. So I think that's something that we need to do as a human society.
Yes, very true, Rupa. I think you brought out a very important issue that, yes, whenever there is some complaint about sexual harassment, we have to take it seriously. And the first step is to filter out the frivolous complaints from the real complaints. So you need to put a thought to it, whether it is actually a genuine complaint or not a genuine complaint, in a very unbiased way. And once that it is established that it is a real complaint, then I don't think we leave any stone unturned. And just as Neha just mentioned, that even for a fraud in certain organizations, they just ask the person to leave. I think swift action has to be taken if it is a genuine case, because justice delayed is justice denied, they say. And I also like the way you brought the aspect of diversity. So because prevention is better than cure, if there is proper diversity across in all levels of management, whether it is lower, middle, or higher, proper mix of male, female, proper mix of people from different regions, different age groups, and all. So I think this there would be more energy towards positivity, and rather than you can say the harassment levels would definitely decrease. And yes, outdated policies are there. We have to keep re-looking at the policies, because as the world is changing and the pace of change is also very fast. And even now in our in all the jobs, if you see, whether it is chartered accountancy, whether it is medicine, whether it is engineering or any profession, you see more and more females are there than what was. You remember when we did our final CA, how low the ratio of females were. And today, if you see in any office, the article clerks, the more is the ratio of females over there. So naturally, there would be more females entering the workforce also. so things are changing, and according to that, the policies also have to change. They have to be more women centric. They have to be more women friendly. And most companies have the same policies which are going on for years. When there was stereotyping of job for women, women are secretaries, women are at the clerical level. They never expected women to, break the glass ceiling and enter the C-suite. So you need, and of course, technology is a big enabler. We have to use technology and see that the harassment, whatever be it, is totally reduced. You have women going in remote places for, looking to get familiarized with the way the organization works and everything. So there has to be due protection and there has to be proper policies in place. I'll just take one question. Meanwhile, Sudha Navandar has put a very interesting question that you need the independent directors need to upgrade themselves definitely. And sitting at home only by Googling or surfing, we cannot upgrade ourselves. Hands-on, we need to become familiar with the organization. When they buy a new machine or when they are diversifying to some new vertical or some merger has happened, or some macroeconomic factor like this Ukraine-Russia war is impacting the organization a lot. So independent directors need to be upgraded, need to be skilled, but it is not actually happening. I mean, companies do not spend money on that. So what are your thoughts on that? I'll come to Neha first and then Rupa.
See, there are many organizations like, say, the Institute of Directors, and then there is Mentor My Board, who have regular training sessions for directors. Of course, those are very, fixed type. They don't handle questions which are unique to any organization. But attending those and keep on attending such sessions after every probably 2 years or something to upskill yourself is very, very, very essential. And this exam which is held on the Institute data bank, that is very interesting because it has got small modules. So you first give the test for the small modules and then give the final exam. So that also brings you up to date about what is happening in, what are the requirements and what all you need to do. But if it is something specific to the company, the independent director should insist that the company spend and they should get training for that particular agenda item.
Okay, so Neha, there are you are categorizing the skill sets into generic skill sets and specific skill sets. Generic skill sets, the onus is on the independent director to take to attend. There are a lot of workshops, a lot of training happening. You can take benefit of that, and you can give those tests even if you're not required to remind yourself of certain things which has to be done in a particular way. Rupa, what are your thoughts on this? And what Sudha Navandar has put is actually very right. Companies do not spend money on independent directors' skill set training.
So I think when it's right, it's also because we don't ask for it. Have we really asked the company to kind of enroll us for any training sessions? There are so many industry seminars that happen. So if you're, for example, in an asset reconstruction company, you don't really know what's happening in the industry. You want to learn more. There are these annual events that happen in, which are industry specific. You can ask the company to get you enrolled on that. Most of the companies even sponsor these events. You can always get them to let you and pay for you actually to attend these sessions, because they are going to increase your knowledge about the industry, about the competitors, about the landscape, about the regulatory reforms. I think any update should be given at every board meeting. So at every quarterly interval, you have a board meeting, and there should be a section on regulatory updates. So if there is any change in the regulations that that we need to look at, the company should explain that to us, and also tell us how this regulation affects the company and what they're doing to do, what steps they're taking to actually comply with these new changed regulations. That way, we will also understand what the company is doing. And of course, it is up to you to go to the, managements and even second in line from the management team to understand more in detail about, some factors that you don't understand about the business. You can even get up and, as chartered accountants, normally we chair audit committees. You can also talk to your auditors, your internal and statutory auditors, about concerns that you have that might be affecting the company, or getting to know, what is competition doing, what are the best practices that other companies are following, etc. And thereby, update your skills. So I think it is just that we need to ask for it. That's the main thing. We hesitate to ask. We should ask.
Very, very well put, Rupa. Unless nobody is going to give you something if you don't ask for it, and then we are hesitant to ask. But I think if we want to deliver also well and do our job well, we need to be trained, and then there is no harm in asking. But there are companies which are very, very not open to having a very skilled board of directors. Again, to reiterate, this concept of independent directors is still evolving all over the world. It is more a checklist for them as compliance of Companies Act, because the act says so, and because they would be in default and have pay penalties. They are waiting for the board meetings to get over, and then they feel they can get back to their job of doing business. So this is something which has to be done, they don't, somehow we have to get the seriousness into it and deliver so well that they feel that, yes, this requirement is helping the company to improve their bottom line, to increase their branding, their visibility, to make them sustainable, and to make the company a better corporate citizen, because ultimately that is what promoters want. But then I think the mindset is such that of certain companies that this is just a compliance requirement, and that is why that they're not spending, I think. But very well put, that if you should insist on spending, and perhaps then when we give it back, when we can contribute better, they will realize that it was a good investment. And I really like the way Neha put the skills into generic skills and specific skills. And we need to keep upgrading ourselves. And I remember someone told me that Walt Disney, even when he was on his deathbed in his 80s or so, I don't remember the age, he was open to learning some new way of doing animations. I think that learning process is continuous, and age is not a bar for it. You have to keep upgrading, you have to keep skilling, you have to keep learning if you want to be an effective board member.
Yeah. And I think, just to add to what you said, it's all about building trust, right? If you work towards building trust, that the management feels that, you're not just asking a question to be because it's your right to ask a question, but because it is in the best interest of the company, then they'll slowly, kind of agree with what you're saying and be ready to spend for you, because they see the value add that you bring to the table. So I think that's where building that trust becomes important.
Very true, very true. Like I think I had read a book long time back, or I think it was Judith Glaser was the author. The book was on conversational intelligence, CI book. So in that also they said that when we speak, the opposite person somehow should feel that that trust should be built between the two of them. So then the opposite person takes seriously what we speak and likes to take action on that. So that trust should be there between the co-directors and between the management and the directors, between the executive directors and the independent directors. So together as a team, you can deliver what is best for all stakeholders. I think it happens with internal auditors also very often. When they go for internal audit, the employees will hide some things, and not disclose some things, but it is for their benefit that the internal audit is there, so that certain frauds and errors are stopped on time, and it's for the benefit. It's a win-win. It's in fact just a win-win situation for the management. It is not one against the other. Similarly, this thing about independent directors being aggressive, finding loopholes, finding faults with the management, and management performance evaluation gets diluted. I don't think, I mean, that confidence and what you said, that faith should be there, that trust should be there, and then only the transparency will happen. You can't have the executive directors, whispering in other rooms. In the next room is what should we speak in the meeting and what we should not speak in the meeting. That kind of total faith has to be built, and yeah, it requires a hard work from both our sides to create that environment of transparency, that yes, whether we are independent or whether we are executive, we are there for the benefit of all stakeholders. Neha, now coming to you about the duration of board meetings. So in one day, I have seen you start at 10 o'clock and maybe end at 3 o'clock. You have the nomination remuneration committee meeting, you have the CSR committee, you have the audit committee, you have the risk management committee, and ultimately the board committee. So sometimes when it comes ultimately to important items in the agenda, everybody is tired and they want to finish off the meeting. So do you think justice is really done for important issues which are brought up to the board?
Coming to, because the agenda items are going on increasing and corporate governance demands that, all these things need to be discussed in NRC or an audit committee and thing, it is best to split the 2 days in 2 days. You have the NRC, CSR and the audit committee on one day, and you have the board meeting on the next day. But in many cases, this is not possible because directors are coming from outstation and whatever the reason. So then it will go on for long. And I know it does happen that you are completely exhausted by the time the agenda items get over. And there is a chance, that you run through some important agenda item, but it is for the independent directors. So one way you could handle this is previous day itself, or whenever you read the board papers, you can send your questions to the chairman, and you can ask him, that I would like this point to be brought out in the board meeting regarding a certain issue, which probably would come, much later, and on which you want a proper discussion. You can just mention to the chairman that on these points, I want further discussions, and please ensure that, it does not get skipped. That could be one way, or then you have to put up with however long it takes, and you have to be completely satisfied that whatever agenda items are there are properly discussed and documented.
Okay, so yeah, so the meetings can drag on and you have to be prepared to be there for the full day. And if your co-directors are not happy with it, so be it.
Yeah.
You have to be insistent that important matters get their due importance and are properly discussed. Rupa, can you tell some story in your, I would like you to share your life story also. How it all started, I mean, you becoming CFO and then you getting into this independent director space and all that.
Yeah. So wonderful life story is actually more than 3 decades of experience now. Just going back, actually, when we started doing our CA, even before passing out, like you mentioned, in 1979-80, when we started, there were hardly any girls doing CA at all, right? So it was a man's world. And I remember that, finding articleship training was also so difficult. In fact, we were so naive that my mother actually needed to go to a chartered accountant firm and, to ask, can you enroll my daughter to do her articleship with you?
Yeah, I remember there used to not be women's toilets also anywhere.
And the person, my principal, was genuinely concerned about the safety of a woman, and he did not want a woman over there. He said, I have never had girls as article clerks and I don't want to keep her. So my mother had to actually convince that, this will be a good candidate and you will be happy with her performance. And then he reluctantly accepted me. The end of it was all good because I was his favorite. But that said, those days were different. And then from there, we passed our CA in the first attempt, did all that. And then because I was only, I had only seen the practice world. I thought, let me start independently practicing on my own, little knowing that there were so few women who were actually independently practicing at that stage. Getting clients, doing all kinds of work, tax work, audit work, anything that came your way actually, and through the word of mouth, because there was no other way that we could advertise for ourselves, was a challenge and in fact a great learning curve for me as well. I did that for almost a decade, and my husband is also a chartered accountant, and he was in industry all the time. And he said that, why are you doing all this? Why don't you just get into an industry and, have an organization back you, because that's much easier. And that's when I decided that, okay, I moved to industry, and the banking industry is where I got in first, managing finance in Oman International Bank just after the securities scam. Lots to do there, lots of learnings, and a great team to work with, some great colleagues that we still have, kept up with relationships with. And so it's a great place to work, really. From there, moved on to Callion Bank, from there to KBC Bank, set up Antwerp Diamond Bank's Indian operations in India, and did almost all of that with the CFO, became a part of the Foreign Banks Association, did a lot of work for the industry, always wanting to contribute and give back and learn more. From there, it was one day that a friend of mine had just started a recruitment agency, and he told me of this, that Luis Miranda is looking for a CFO for his infrastructure fund. And I said, private equity? What is private equity all about? I don't even know it. I'm a passionate banker, and I refused to meet him. So he said no. And at his insistence, I went and met Louis. And in one evening on a whiteboard, he explained to me what is private equity all about. And, what he said is that we are starting an infrastructure fund, which was announced by the finance minister in his budget speech, and that we would be investing in infrastructure and therefore contributing to nation building. And that's what stuck with me, that we are going to do something meaningful. And I said I was on. And we really had a great stint of more than 11 and a half years in IDFC. We set up 7 funds, so the whole fund life cycle, met with some great minds of India, had Luis Miranda and Dr. Vijay Kelkar as my mentor. Met with Jerry Rao, Kishore Chaukar, Mr. Mathur, Renu Karnad, all kinds of, just the experts as a part of the board and the SEC over there. Built some great relationships with institutional investors, did it and saw it all, got, accolades and recognitions. And then in 2014, on 2nd of April, I got my appointment as an apex body member of the Art of Living. And I knew I couldn't do both these roles, and I couldn't do justice to both these roles at one time. And I opted to give up my CFO role and do something to give back to society. And as a chairman of the Maharashtra Apex Body of the Art of Living, had a chance to engage myself in a lot of seva, sadhana, and satsang, as we call it. And it was really fulfilling. Around the same time, we had the Companies Act come in and the women directorship, opening up. And that's when I got a call from Vahura Legal, who are kind of recruiters for independent directors. And they gave me an opportunity in Volkswagen Finance, which I joined. I still continue on the board there. And then came, a list of host of others like Capacity Infra, Advanced Enzymes, Incred Finance, Cravatex Brands, India Alternatives that I've just joined last year is 100% woman board, which I'm really happy about. So it's very fulfilling. I contribute to, industry seminars, etc. Contribute on the National Committee of the CII on financial reporting, and I'm a jury of the CFO 100 awards, things that keep me connected with the industry and still give me the flexibility to work. So I'm happy giving back and being useful. That's the journey so far. I look forward to being a grandmother now. So you're on mute.
Yeah. So you had you took a tough call and said no to the commercial gains and went in for spiritual gains. And whenever I meet you, I always take back your calmness, your the peace and contentment, I think ultimately is very important in life.
Yeah.
Amazing story. And I think that, maybe your insistence on being ethical and being hardworking has paid dividends ultimately. Yes, and there has been a lot of change since we passed out of final CA. I remember we were in the typewriter era, where
Yeah.
big balance sheets we used to type, and if there was a mistake, we used to use whiting. But
Yeah.
to send it to the stock markets, we had to retype the whole thing. Then we had facet calculators, typing in figures and then checking from that printout. We used to take and check if the figures are all taken. And imagine having a Casio calculator was a status symbol. And then computers came and it changed everything, and we thought that life will become easy, but then
Yeah.
scalability increased. Instead of servicing say 20 clients, we were servicing then 200 clients. So it is not that work decreased, in fact it increased.
Yeah.
And we had to keep upgrading ourselves because Excel tools started becoming better and better. So yeah, it has been an exciting journey. And I think the current generation also has a lot of challenges because things are keeping changing. Now you have RPA and AI and machine learning and deep learning, and things which was science fiction 5 years ago is becoming a reality today. So interesting story, Rupa. Neha, can you share your story from where, I mean, amazing that you could head the CSR division of Reliance Foundation. I found it very impressive. And I mean, how much you may have done for the society. Okay, tell me your story, please.
Yeah, so I come from absolutely middle class background, and I was the first one in the family to go to commerce. At that time it was science and arts. Very few people used to go to commerce.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it's very true. When I opted for commerce, my school teachers started wondering, I mean, oh no, all the clever girls should go for science, or why are you going for commerce,
It was only my love for maths because of which I went for commerce. And I was in NM college, so we had a very good friend circle. So all of us did CA foundation together. And my whole focus was do CA inter. At that time, you used to get very good jobs with CA inter, and as soon as possible get a job. But when I cleared CA inter so fast, then I thought, why not try CA final? You start getting attempted. So at 22, I was a CA. And even before my, just as soon as my final exams were over, so I used to do articleship with a firm, and Tirumala Chemicals was their audit. So I used to go there as a articleship audit. And then they advertised in the paper for accounts officer with 10 to 15 years experience. So I said, why not apply? And I applied there. And as soon as I finished my final CA exam, I joined there. And there started my corporate journey. And 29 years I spent with that company and learned absolutely everything. I would attend to income tax, assessments, even go up to the appellate level. Then I handled banking. I used to attend consortium meetings, raise loans. We had a right issue. We had a bonus issue. And we even a second-hand plant we imported from Germany and trebled our capacity. So, and one part of the plant came to India. Our factory was in Ranipet in Tamil Nadu, and another part went to Malaysia. So we had a joint venture in Malaysia. So I used to regularly go there and meet with the bankers. So fantastic experience, fantastic exposure. At that time, audit committee and everything was not even heard of. There was nothing like corporate governance mentioned. So the auditor used to true and fair view with the best of explanation given. The accounts I give a true and fair view of the affairs of the company. That's how it used to be worded. Then when the audit committee started, so we had Mr. Dilip Thakkar on our board. He's a very reputed chartered accountant and lawyer. So he guided us very well. He was on several boards, and he actually brought me, interested to become a director. And I had decided that time itself that when I get more experience and, later in life, I will definitely like to become a director. And with that in mind, Bombay Chartered and SP Jain had a 6-weekend training program for directors. And I joined the first batch, and very interesting. And they had mock board meetings also, and it was very interesting. And even FIO and Mr. Cyril Schrock, they had a one-day training program. So I attended that also. So all the time, I tried to equip myself with that. And then after 29 years, there was a split in the family. It was a family business. So I resigned. And then after having worked for so long, I wanted to give back to society. So I was all the time looking out for something in an NGO. And then this Reliance Foundation happened. And I got the best of both worlds. It was a corporate environment, and giving back to society was also fulfilled. And we had to spend 700 crores. And there were 22 companies within the group who used to contribute to Reliance Foundation. And within a year, CSR became mandatory. So giving utilization certificates to all these, audited utilization certificates to all these companies, and keep proper records. The CSR requirements are very stringent. You have to mention this place where it was done and all that. So all that, keeping the records and all this by the 10th of April, because, Reliance publishes their results really fast. So that was a very good learning experience. And it was just something, I will remember all my life. Then I was shifted to Reliance Industries, where I was vice president heading the payroll and the employee insurance. And that is when I asked the group controller that now that I'm going to retire in a year or two, can I take up directorships? And he said yes, and fortunately. And he said, as long as there is no conflict of interest, you can take up. So before you take up, you please check with us. And then one search agency got to me for this Bodal Chemicals assignment. And that is when I took it up. It was in Ahmedabad. So now I'm serving the second term there. Very interesting. We have 3 chartered accountant independent directors on the board, but each with their own, experience in different areas of finance. So it has been, and 2 years back, I joined the board of Mitsukam Class Limited, which is very close to my home. And it was an MSME when I joined, but within a period of 3 months, they moved from the MSME board to the main board. And this happened virtually. Mitsukam was the first company which during lockdown, which went to the main board. So the listing happened virtually, on just on a Zoom call. So that was also very interesting. I've been able to give quite a lot of positive inputs to Mitsukam because of my experience, how to, benchmark yourself against competitors, and how to get loans at lower interest, who all are, with this COVID, there were so many possibilities. So there also I could advise them. So I'm sure they have been positively, it has benefited them as a company. And, CA does not teach speaking skills. That was the difference between an MBA and a CA. Whereas MBAs could give very good presentations and all that, CAs found it very difficult to speak. So at the age of 53, 54, I came to know about Toastmasters Club. So I joined the Toastmasters Club, and 5 years I gave speeches. And in fact, I reached up to the division level in a humorous speech contest. So that was also a big learning, and that helped me in my career in Reliance also, because there were very many opportunities, where there were seminars and training programs conducted, where you had to present. And even though I knew the topic very well, earlier it was difficult for me to express. But then this Toastmaster helped me, get over those stage fear. And then after retirement, I retired in 2019. And then this Access Life Assistance Foundation, it's a very good NGO. It is providing accommodation for children who come from outstation and who have cancer from 0 to 14 years of age. So the accommodation with the parents, they can stay there till their entire treatment is over. Everything is free. They get food, we give them grains. They can cook there. We have provided arrangement for cooking. And they get very good CSR funds. So it is my responsibility to ensure that it is properly documented, properly spent, and oversee the entire finance department. It is not, everyday basis, but then I'm a director advisor of that board. And then my son has a company called Target Publications. So I, advise them. I attend their business review meetings, and just like a consultant, just doing it out of sheer love for the profession. It is nothing else. I don't charge them anything. It is just that I want to give back. This 37 years of experience is very, very important. And for youngsters, it is very good that they are guided properly and they go forward with that. And last 1 year, I started, there are free classes, online classes for Bhagavad Gita. So I started attending the online class. Just 2 days back, I finished the entire 18 adhyayas, out of which 6 I've learned by heart, and I say them every day. And also the Venkatesh Suprabhatam, I recite every day. So it's brought a lot of peace to me, and just looking forward to this, different life. After having worked so hard in a corporate, this is very interesting. And I can do things at my time and my leisure. That's my story.
Great, great. Yeah. Yes, even I passed, I'm very ancient, I think, compared to all the participants and all. I passed my final C, I think, sometime in 1984.
Oh,
And
I'm earlier than you also.
Okay.
I
Then
did it in
joined a
83.
very good firm, PD Kunte and Company, and soon became partner there.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed, and that at that time it was broad based, everything, FEMA, Companies
Yeah.
Act, Income Tax Act, everything, even
Yeah.
representative practice and going to the tribunal also.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Mhm.
And actually, by chance, I got into teaching because a friend of mine was visiting at JBIMS. She fell sick and she asked me to take the lectures.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was like duck taking to water, the amount I enjoyed. And
Wow.
my husband is also a chartered accountant. Then he started telling me, your qualification is becoming an obstacle to you. Why don't you do things which you like? So
Yeah.
finally, I think in 2011, I totally resigned and entered academics. And at a late age, I did my doctorate to be in academics. And I did my doctorate in healthcare because I was
Oh,
always
nice.
interested. And then I became a counselor in Tata Memorial Hospital.
Oh, nice.
And that gives a lot of satisfaction because you realize how lucky you are
Yeah, yeah.
with and how much you have. And I think the icing on the cake was when the ICAI gave me the CA Educator Award. So I now know that I've taken the right decision to be in the right field. I think one needs to know the right fit, and CA is a qualification. It's an amazing qualification
Yeah.
for which many doors open, and you can then take up whatever you want. You can be go in for a finance vertical in industry, or you can go in for practice, or you can do anything else because you are adequately qualified and prepared for it.
Absolutely.
So I don't think there are any questions. Participants, can you put any questions if you want to both the panelists or specifically to Neha or Rupa if you wish? If there are no questions, then I think Seema madam, you are coordinating.
Yes.
So I have a rapid fire question to both of them, and we also have prepared a quiz. So what do you think we should go with, the quiz first or the rapid fire questions?
I think we should go for rapid fire first.
Okay. So I have rapid fire questions both to Neha and Rupa. They are just 5. And after that, we will have a quiz, which is just of
Yes.
10 questions, which all participants mandatory must solve it. So Rupa, I'll start with you, and it has to be yes or no, the answer. I mean, you cannot say I don't know, or I agree with both, or I don't agree with both. You have to make a choice, and very, very fast without giving much thought to thinking about it. It has to just come out. Do you feel worried of the onerous responsibility of independent directors? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. 2, which skill set is more useful in fulfilling your duties as independent director? Knowledge of Companies Act or business strategy?
Business strategy.
Okay. Your duty as women director, is it different from that of male directors? Yes or no?
No.
No. Okay. Who do you prefer more as your role model? Angela Merkel or Oprah Winfrey?
Oprah Winfrey. She
Okay.
is the world's best woman influencer.
Okay. 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 What would you prefer to de-stress yourself? Meditation or doing gardening?
Meditation.
Oh,
Madam, many questions are answered like both the answer is correct.
Yeah.
so,
It's
but,
true, but
yes.
you have to choose one.
you
So
have to choose one.
Yeah, it's very difficult to choose one in that.
that's true,
questions.
especially with the Companies Act and
Yeah,
statute.
because independent direct, both the things is required. With knowledge of only business strategy is not required. Company that you also have knowledge of company that.
Yeah, so but she had to answer one only. Yeah. Yeah, so
and to distress, gardening is also best option.
Yes.
yes. Yeah, what you're saying is right, but she had to give one answer, and then I think the participants have understood how Rupa feels that yes, people don't want to become independent directors because the responsibility is very onerous, but she is bold enough to take it. It's okay. I will work hard and take the responsibility. And yes, as chartered accountants, if you are independent director, you need to go beyond the laws and understand strategy also. And women directors, maybe the act needs women directors, but it makes no difference. Both male and women directors ultimately have to see that the stakeholders' interest is met. And yes, you need influencers in your life, you need mentors in your life, and you need to do something or the other to de-stress yourself and to be at peace. Okay, Neha, which role would you prefer? Work for an organization in top management and the joy of steering a company to achieve its vision, or being part of a board and not be involved in the day-to-day activities?
To be part of the board at this stage of my life.
Okay. So which role do you prefer as chairperson in a committee? So chairperson of audit committee or chairperson of CSR committee?
Chairperson of CSR committee, of course.
Okay. You have been part of the corporate world and seen women working at lower management, middle management, higher management, top management, or whatever. So do you think that they face discrimination? Yes or no?
No.
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 Okay. Do you feel as a woman on board, you can be instrumental in improving HR policies addressing women-specific issues? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Who do you prefer more as a role model, Sheryl Sandberg or Indra Nooyi?
Indra Nooyi.
Okay. Okay. So I think the answers that Neha got out, that as your age progresses, your goals, your aspirations also change. You know that I think it's a curve that when you're younger, your goals are different, and as you progress in age, maybe your goals change.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, it's 6:45 now. I think we can give them 10 minutes for the quiz and then wrap up. Seema, madam.
Yes, sure. We'll take quiz.
So are you putting up the link on chat? So they can, is it on Google Form, the quiz? Can you put the link on chat quickly?
Kapoor madam. Hello, Kapoor madam.
एक सेकेंड में पूछती हूँ क्विज का लिंक है मैडम you have a quiz link of quiz with you Sangeeta ma'am whether you have the link of quiz with you
I'll just check if she has sent it to me.
Please don't disturb me.
Ma'am, I should send the quiz link.
Yes.
Okay.
We are waiting for that.
Yeah, send the shortened link on chat, no? Put the link on chat, Kapoor madam. Okay, so I think you just have to go to the link and fill it up and send it. So immediately we will understand the results.
Cannot see the link.
Hello.
Madam, I have posted in the chat box. Sangeeta ma'am, I have posted the forms in the chat box.
Can you read out the question, please, Seema madam?
Yes. Schedule 6 of the Companies Act gives the code for independent directors.
Acha, you reading out the quiz. Okay, you want me to give the answers?
No.
Hmm?
Now it is actually
The quiz question.
Yeah, it's a quiz question. Quiz for a participant.
yeah, it is a quiz. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how can madam give the answer now? Participants give the answer.
I think in spite of filling the form, participant can write the answer in chat box.
That would be better. Yeah, that
yeah,
we will
that
discuss
would
it.
be,
We
that
will
would be,
discuss it,
yeah. Then we can discuss it one by one now. So,
yeah,
Seema,
Seema
you
madam, you can read out the first question.
Yeah, first question, then we will give 1 minute to answer. Then we will discuss that question. I think that will be far better.
Absolutely.
Seema madam, read out the first question.
Okay. First question of the screens, no?
Schedule 6 of the Company Act give the code of for independent director. Yes or no?
No. Schedule 4, no?
Yeah.
Right? Panelists?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
The word probity refers to.
We are asking answer from participant
Panelists,
first. Then we
so
will
let's see who puts the answer first. Okay, sorry.
Not from panelist.
Let's see who puts the answer first. Huh? Panelists.
Yeah,
question
participant
2.
has to answer. Then we will say which answer is correct or
Yeah.
no.
Question 2.
Yeah.
The word probity refers to diligence or morals.
Participants are requested to write in the chat box, please. And
The word probity refers to diligence or morals.
just a second, I have to ask when.
Morals. Very
Morals.
right. Preeti Agarwal, very good. I'm taking down the names who are writing the right answer. Next question.
Whistleblowing activity must be A, encouraged to enhance transparency and accountability, or B, discouraged as it may lead to fall in the value of the company.
Should I share the screen for question if they are unable to understand that?
Should be encouraged for what? For what reason?
Encouraged to enhance transparency and accountability, or discouraged.
Encouraged. Very good, Vidya. Right answer.
Yeah, it is right.
Right answer. Vidya is given the right answer. Next.
Fourth question. Independent directors, A, need to ask questions to understand issues and direct corporate governance. B, need to exercise their right to ask questions and implement compliance. You have to choose one.
Again, Preeti. Again, Preeti gave need to.
No, that's not the right answer. They need, it is not a right that they have to exercise, and implementation is not their onerous responsibility. Is not their responsibility. The responsibility of the board is direction, more of stewardship. They just have to direct, guide.
Question means answer
Okay,
A,
next.
it is need to ask questions to understand issues and direct corporate governance is the answer, is the right answer. Yeah.
Question 5.
Question number 5. Women independent directors are needed for A, diversity. Second, B, women.
Okay, very good. Rajeshri Shetty has answered first.
Diversity.
Diversity. Yeah.
Yes.
It is, as we said, diversity is always required, and research has proved that.
Ms. Ashu Suyash was recently appointed as independent director at A, Infosys, B, HUL.
This is not updated, I think.
Anshu
Sudha
Navandar, HUL. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Kalpana Morparia is independent director at HUL or Infosys.
No,
Participants, please write.
HUL it is. 8th question.
So there are two independent directors in HUL.
Yeah. Rupa is on a board where there are all women directors also. So people are going beyond what is required by law. Also. No, it is actually, it is minimum. It don't say that you cannot have more.
Yeah. Naturally we can have more.
Question number 8. DIN, directors identification number is required. A, only by executive directors or by all directors?
Preeti has answered.
All directors.
Preeti and Rajshri both have answered.
Very good. She's very fast also.
Question number 9. The proficiency test for independent director is conducted by the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs as per the Companies Act 2013 or the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs as per the LODR guidelines of SEBI. Proficiency test for independent director.
Mosmi Shah said A, Vidya Kulkarni said A. It's a big, as per company act.
But who said first? I can't see.
Mosmi Shah.
I don't know, something happened to my chat. Mosmi Shah. Okay.
Mosmi Shah said first.
It is advisable for independent directors to become internal auditors to play a meaningful role to ensure implementation of good corporate practices. Yes or no?
No, Rajeshri Shetty again. Okay, great. WRC just see that Preeti Agarwal, Vidya Kulkarni, Rajeshri Shetty, Sudha Navandar, and Maushami Shah, I think, have won the quiz.
Wow, great for all the winners. Clap. So it was a great round of quiz.
Yeah. Okay, Shweta. Is Shweta there?
No, Seema, you can carry on with because the same.
Thank you. It is my great pleasure to present vote of thanks to today's panelists, CA Neha Huddar and CA Rupa Vora, and the moderator, Dr. CA Sangeeta Pandit. CA Sangeeta Pandit rightly put the questions to both the panelists so that all the participants updated with the roles and responsibilities of the independent directors. Independent directors should see how the organization will be benefited and how to safeguard interest of minority shareholders. Independent directors should understand and follow the culture and values of the organization. He should get himself familiar with the company by understanding policies of the company and policies of the company, and also the whistleblower policy. They should understand, and if needed, they may be updated. Our participants are really benefited, and I, on behalf of WRC of ICI, present hearty vote of thanks to today's panelists, CA Neha ji and CA Rupa ji, and moderator Dr. CA Sangeeta Pandit. I also thank you, CA Murtuza Kachwala, for addressing today's session, and CA and WRC Secretary CA Shweta Jain and Regional Council Member CA Pinky Kedia for introducing the panelist and the moderator. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of WRC. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Neha madam, Rupa madam,
Thank
and
you.
Sangeeta madam.
Thank you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot for giving you time.
Thank you.
But Rupa
Thank you,
madam, I think you
everyone.
are not in India, na? You are
No, I'm
abroad, na, Rupa ma'am?
Yeah, she's in Canada now.
Yeah, because last time we changed the timing for it was on early morning, so we changed the timing at that time also. Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Madam
Sangeeta,
Kapoor, madam.
very-
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was
Kapoor madam,
very
very-
nicely organized for quiz and all these things were there. So thank you, Kapoor ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Thank
ma'am, you are on mute. Kapoor madam, you are on mute. Sangeeta madam ने बोला था ना
All
शुरू में.
credit goes to our panelists and our moderator. That is their teamwork to make this event a success. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Shabani ji. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
विनय क्लोज कर सकते हैं आप.
क्या बोल रही थी फिर ये पागल लोग? हम लोग ने बोला ही नहीं ऐसा. वो लड़की को